Good evening. Take a deep breath and allow yourself now to enter a place where time moves with the gentleness of wings, where the sky holds ancient secrets, and where each feather carries a story of lightness and freedom. Today, you will be led on a serene path through the world of birds, those creatures that inhabit the space between the earth and infinity, that sing at dawn and fall silent at twilight, that fly without haste and rest without guilt. You don't need to do anything other than be here, breathing, listening, feeling. Let the words carry you like a current of warm air beneath the wings of a hawk, like the breeze that cradles the nest high in the tree. This journey has no fixed destination, only gentle movement, only calm discovery, only the celebration of the winged life that populates our skies and our dreams. You close your eyes for a moment and imagine any dawn, anywhere in the world. The light is still shy, a golden promise on the horizon. The air is fresh, clean, laden with dew and silence. And then, from some invisible place, the first song arises. It's not loud, it's not aggressive. It is just a pure, crystalline note, which cuts through the silence of the early morning like a thread of light crosses the fog. This song is not random. It carries intention, beauty, and function. You hear and feel something inside you calm down, as if the sound itself were a balm for the restless mind. Birds sing at dawn not just out of habit, but because the acoustics of the morning are perfect. The cold, dense air carries the sound more efficiently, and the absence of wind allows each note to travel far, reaching attentive ears in all directions. They sing to mark territory, to attract mates, to tell the world, I'm here, I'm alive, I'm present. But for you, who listen without the pressure to respond, the song is just music, just living poetry, just the pulse of the natural world in its purest form. The song of birds is a phenomenon that has fascinated scientists and poets for centuries. Each species has its own repertoire, its own sonic language. Some birds, like the American robin, have complex songs that can last for minutes, with subtle variations that indicate mood, intention, and identity. Others, like the eastern phoebe, prefer short and repetitive phrases, calls that echo through the treetops with unmistakable clarity. The brain of songbirds has a specialized region called the robust nucleus of the archopolyum, responsible for the fine control of the muscles of the syrinx, the vocal organ of birds. This structure, delicate and powerful, allows a small bird to produce sounds of an impressive variety, modulating frequency, rhythm, and timbre with millimeter precision. And most fascinating, many birds learn to sing by listening to their parents and other members of their species, just as human children learn to speak. There is, therefore, a culture of song, a sonic tradition that passes from generation to generation, shaped by the environment, by geography, by the history of each population. You realize then that when you hear a bird sing, you are not just hearing a sound. You are listening to a lineage, a collective memory, a link that extends back in time, connecting you to countless mornings, countless springs, countless winged lives that sang before and will sing after. You breathe slowly and let this idea envelop you. There is something deeply comforting in knowing that the song of birds is both instinctive and learned, natural and cultural. They don't sing just because they must, but because they can, because they learned, because they choose. And in that choice, there is beauty, there is intention, there is art. Song is a bridge between the material world and the symbolic world, between biological need and aesthetic expression. When you hear a bird singing at dawn, you are witnessing an act of creation, a performance that is both functional and transcendent. And you, in turn, are part of that experience. Your silent presence, your gentle attention, your open heart, transform the song into something more than sound. They transform it into connection, into contemplation, into a moment of shared peace between species, between consciousnesses, between ways of existing in the world. Now, imagine that you are in a tropical rainforest, where the density of bird species is higher than in any other place on the planet. Sunlight filters through the leaves in golden and green rays, creating a mosaic of light and shadow on the ground covered with moss and fallen leaves. The air is humid, hot, perfumed with the scent of earth and life in decomposition and renewal. And in every corner, at every height, in every direction, there are birds, some small as insects, others large as cats. Some bright as jewels, others discreet as the forest itself. And each of them occupies a niche, a unique space in the complex fabric of life. You watch a humming It simply floats there, suspended in space, inserting its long, slender beak into the chalice to extract the sweet nectar that is its food and its reason for being. The flight of hummingbirds is a marvel of natural engineering. Their wings beat at a frequency that can reach 80 times per second, creating a characteristic hum that gives these birds their name in many languages. Unlike most birds, which flap their wings up and down, hummingbirds perform a figure-8 motion, rotating their wings at their shoulders so that each beat generates lift on both the downstroke and the upstroke. This allows them not only to hover in the air, but also to fly backwards, sideways, and even upside down for brief moments. Their metabolism is extremely accelerated, burning energy at a rate that would be unsustainable for most animals. To compensate, they feed constantly, visiting hundreds of flowers a day, consuming up to twice their body weight in nectar and small insects. At night, when the flowers close and the temperature drops, many hummingbirds enter a state of torpor, drastically reducing their body temperature and metabolic rate to conserve energy until dawn. It's a form of mini hibernation, a biological trick that allows these tiny creatures to survive in a world where every calorie is precious. You contemplate the hummingbird and feel a silent admiration. There is something almost impossible about its existence, something that defies common logic. How can something so small and delicate be at the same time so powerful and resilient? How can a heart the size of a pea beat more than 1,000 times a minute without failing? How can a creature that weighs less than a coin live with such intensity, such speed, such precision? And yet, there it is, hovering peacefully, fulfilling its daily task with an elegance that seems effortless. The hummingbird does not worry about the improbability of its existence. It simply exists, simply lives, simply is. And in that simplicity, in that total acceptance of its nature, there is a lesson of peace. You don't need to understand completely to appreciate. You don't need to unravel all the mysteries to feel reverence. Just observe. Just be present. Just recognize that the world is full of wonders that exceed our ability to comprehend, and that this, far from being frustrating, is deeply liberating. You take another deep breath and let your mind wander. Think now of migratory birds. those that cross continents and oceans on epic journeys that are repeated year after year, generation after generation. Imagine an Arctic tern, a small, slender bird born in the polar summer of the northern hemisphere, where the sun barely sets and the tundra is covered with ephemeral life. When autumn approaches and the days begin to shorten, something awakens within this tern. It is not a conscious decision in the human sense, but a deep impulse, encoded in its genes, refined by millions of years of evolution. It feeds intensely, accumulating reserves of fat that will be its fuel for the journey. And then, on an unceremonious day, it departs. It flies south, crossing forests, mountains, deserts, seas. It doesn't stop to ask for directions. It doesn't consult maps. It simply flies, guided by a combination of instinct, genetic memory, and environmental cues that include the position of the sun, the Earth's magnetic field, and even the stars in the night sky. Over weeks, this small tern travels more than 40,000 kilometers, crossing the equator, passing the coast of Africa, skirting storms, facing predators, resisting exhaustion. And when it finally reaches its destination, the polar summer of the southern hemisphere, it finds an environment almost identical to the one it left behind. The sun shines again, almost without pause. Food is abundant, life explodes. It feeds, recovers, and when the austral summer ends, it makes the journey back, again traveling 40,000 kilometers until it returns to the exact location where it was born. In total, over its lifetime, an Arctic tern can fly the equivalent of 3 trips from Earth to the Moon. It is an existence of perpetual motion, of constantly changing horizons, of infinite skies. And yet, there is something deeply stable, deeply ordered in this life. The tern is not lost. It knows where it's going, even if it doesn't know that it knows. It is following a path traced millennia ago, a path that is both its own and that of all the terns that came before. The navigation of migratory birds is one of the great mysteries of biology, although many pieces of the puzzle have already been assembled. Studies show that many birds possess magnetoreception, the ability to perceive the Earth's magnetic field. Tiny magnetite crystals in their brains may function as biological compasses, helping them maintain the correct direction even on cloudy days or at night. Others use the sun as a reference, mentally adjusting their position as the sun moves throughout the day. Some species, especially those that migrate at night, navigate by the stars, recognizing patterns of constellations that remain constant throughout the seasons. And there is also the possibility that they use visual landmarks, memories of landscapes, scents carried by the wind, and even infrasonic signals from ocean waves breaking on distant shores. Avian navigation is therefore a multimodal system, a network of senses and processing that work together to create a three-dimensional perception of the world, a perception that goes far beyond what humans can experience without the aid of instruments. You close your eyes and try to imagine what it would be like to see the world through the eyes of a migratory bird. You wouldn't just see colors and shapes. You would see magnetic fields curving around the planet like invisible lines of force. You would see the polarization of sunlight, perceiving directions that are hidden from human perception. You would see stars even during the day, feeling their presence through photosensitive receptors in your brain. The world would be simultaneously larger and sharper, filled with information you didn't even know existed. And in this expanded world, you wouldn't feel lost. On the contrary, you would feel a deep certainty, an unwavering confidence in your ability to find your way. Each flap of your wing would take you closer to home, even if home was thousands of miles away. And that ability to trust the unknown, to launch yourself into the void knowing that there is an invisible order guiding you, is something that resonates deeply with the human experience of faith, hope, and courage. Birds teach us that you don't have to see the whole path to start walking. Just take the first step, or rather, the first flight, and trust that the rest will reveal itself in due time. Breathe now and let that image dissolve gently. Let's turn our attention to something closer, more intimate. Think of a nest. Maybe you saw one in childhood, hidden among the branches of a tree in your backyard. Maybe you watched with curiosity and care, without touching, respecting the sacred space of that small natural architecture. A nest is more than just a pile of twigs and leaves. It is a work of engineering, art, and instinct combined. Each species of bird builds nests in different ways, using different materials, choosing different locations. Some nests are simple depressions in the ground, lined with feathers and moss. Others are elaborate structures, woven with millimeter precision from plant fibers, spider webs, lichens, and even saliva. The Rufous hornero, native to South America, builds mud nests that look like small adobe houses, with separate chambers and an entrance strategically positioned to protect against predators and the elements. Certain African weaver birds create communal nests that can weigh tons and house hundreds of individuals, structures that last for decades and are used by multiple generations. Building a nest is a process that can take days or weeks, depending on the species and environmental conditions. Each branch is chosen with care, tested for strength and flexibility. Each fiber is interwoven with precision, each feather positioned to maximize comfort and thermal insulation. There are no blueprints, no measurements, no tools other than the beak and claws. And yet, the result is a functional, beautiful structure, perfectly adapted to its purpose. The nest is both cradle and fortress, a place where fragile eggs can be incubated safely, where vulnerable chicks can grow protected until they are ready to fly. It is the first home of each bird, the place where life begins, where total dependence is gradually transformed into independence, where vulnerability is surrounded by care and dedication. You mentally observe a pair of birds working together to build a nest. One brings a twig, the other positions it. One finds a soft feather, the other weaves it into the inner lining. There is coordination, there is cooperation, there is something that resembles communication and shared purpose. And when the nest is finally ready, when the eggs are laid and incubation begins, there is a period of patient waiting, of constant vigilance, of body heat offered without interruption. The parents take turns, one incubating while the other searches for food. There are no complaints, no negotiations, just the silent fulfillment of an instinct that is both individual and universal, specific to each pair and common to all birds that have ever lived. And when the eggs finally crack and the chicks emerge, blind, featherless, completely dependent, the parents enter a new rhythm of existence. Now, every minute is dedicated to searching for food, protecting against excessive cold or heat, removing waste from the nest, keeping the space clean and safe. Parental care in birds is an extraordinary demonstration of dedication and energy. Some parents make hundreds of trips a day to feed their chicks, each trip bringing a small insect, a seed, a piece of fruit. The chicks grow rapidly, gaining weight and developing feathers at a speed that seems impossible. In a few weeks, creatures that were no more than masses of pink and vulnerable flesh transform into young birds, ready to leave the nest and face the world. This process, although common and repeated countless times every day in every corner of the planet, never ceases to be miraculous. Each nest is a small island of hope. Each chick is a bet of nature on the future. Each inaugural flight is a victory against improbability. And you, observing all this with the eyes of the mind, feel a deep tenderness, a silent gratitude for the persistence of life, for the constant renewal that ensures that there will always be birds singing at dawn, there will always be wings cutting through the sky, There will always be nests hidden among the leaves. Breathe slowly and allow this image to calm you even more. Now think of the diversity of colors that birds display. Think of the vibrant blue of a macaw, the intense red of a cardinal, the iridescent green of a quetzal, the bright yellow of a canary. The colors of birds are not accidental. They serve multiple purposes: attracting mates, camouflage, communication, intimidating rivals. But beyond function, there is an intrinsic beauty, an aesthetic that seems to transcend mere survival. A peacock opening its tail in a fan, with hundreds of iridescent eyes shining in the sun, is a vision of pure magnificence. It is not just a sign of health and reproductive fitness, it is a living work of art, an explosion of color and form that awakens admiration even in species that are not its biological target. You, a human, can look at a peacock and feel the same enchantment that a peahen feels, although for completely different reasons. And this suggests that beauty, at a deep level, is universal. It crosses boundaries of species, cognition, context. It exists not only in the eyes of the beholder, but also in the structure of the world, in the laws of physics that govern the interaction between light and matter. The colors of birds are produced by two main mechanisms: pigments and microscopic structures. Pigments like melanins produce dark colors, browns, blacks, and some shades of red and yellow. Carotenoids, obtained through diet, create vibrant reds, oranges, and yellows. But the most impressive colors, the deep blues, the iridescent greens, the metallic purples, are not produced by pigments. They are structural colors, resulting from the interaction of light with nanostructures in the feathers. Microscopic layers of keratin and air, arranged in precise patterns, interfere with light waves, reflecting certain frequencies and absorbing others. The result is a color that changes in intensity and hue depending on the angle of observation. A color that seems to shine from within. A color that is both material and illusory. These structures are so complex, so finely tuned, that they take decades of research to be fully understood. And each discovery reveals new layers of sophistication, new strategies that evolution has developed to manipulate light and create beauty. You imagine now being in an equatorial forest, walking slowly along a trail covered with fallen leaves. The light is filtered, green and golden. The air is heavy with humidity and life. And suddenly, a flash of color crosses your field of vision. A bird, perhaps a scarlet tanager or an azure cotenga, lands on a nearby branch. For a moment, you and the bird stare at each other. It is not afraid, just cautiously curious. You observe every detail of its plumage, every nuance of color, every pattern of light and shadow. And you realize that this creature, so small and so bright, carries in its body a story of millions of years of evolutionary refinement. Each feather was selected not only to fly, but to communicate, to attract, to intimidate, to camouflage. Each color is an adaptation, a response to environmental and sexual pressures, a solution to the eternal problem of how to survive and thrive in a competitive world. And yet, when you look at the bird, you don't think about natural selection or evolutionary pressures. You simply think, how beautiful. And that response, so simple and so profound, is a connection between your own consciousness and the objective beauty of the world. It's a moment of recognition, of appreciation, of silent gratitude for living on a planet where such creatures exist. Let your breath flow naturally, and now direct your attention to the silence between the songs. Not all moments of a bird's life are filled with sound. There are long periods of stillness, of rest, of simple existence. A bird perched on a branch, with its eyes half closed, its body relaxed, isn't doing anything special. It's just being. And in this state of pure being, there is a profound lesson for the human mind. Always so busy, always so full of thoughts and plans and worries. Birds don't worry about the future in the same way that humans do. They live in an eternal, extended present, responding to immediate stimuli, guided by instincts and learning that operate below the level of reflective consciousness. They don't make to-do lists, they don't set long-term goals, they don't torment themselves with regrets of the past or anxieties about tomorrow. They simply live each moment as it comes, doing what needs to be done when it needs to be done. You mentally observe this bird at rest and feel something within you relax. There's an elegance in guilt-free rest, in stillness without discomfort. The bird isn't wasting time. It's conserving energy, processing experiences, allowing its body to recover from the efforts of flight and feeding. Rest is an essential part of life, not an interruption of it. And when the bird eventually moves, when it opens its wings and flies to another branch or dives in search of food, it does so with an economy of movement, an efficiency that comes from the total absence of internal hurry. There is no unnecessary tension, no effort beyond what is needed. Each action flows naturally from the previous one. Each movement is complete in itself. And you, observing, learn something fundamental about how to live. You learn that it is possible to be active without being anxious, that it is possible to rest without feeling guilty, that it is possible to simply be in the world without constantly needing to do, achieve, prove. Take a deep breath once more and allow your mind to expand to contemplate the temporal scale. Birds, as a group, have an evolutionary history that extends for more than 150 million years. They descend from theropod dinosaurs, those same bipedal predators that dominated the Earth in the Jurassic and Cretaceous periods. Over geological eras, some of these dinosaurs developed feathers, initially perhaps for thermal insulation or display, then for gliding, and finally for flying. The first birds were small, clumsy, with teeth and claws on their wings. But they had a crucial advantage. They could escape from terrestrial predators, explore inaccessible resources, colonize new habitats. When an asteroid collided with Earth 65 million years ago, extinguishing the non-avian dinosaurs and most other life forms, the birds survived. Small, adaptable, able to fly long distances in search of food and safety, they weathered the apocalypse and emerged into a new world, ready to be conquered. In the millions of years that followed, birds diversified into an explosion of forms and life strategies. They colonized every continent, every biome, from the most arid deserts to the most humid rainforests, from the polar tundras to the most remote oceanic islands. Some became giants, like the extinct elephant bird of Madagascar, which weighed half a ton. Others remained tiny, like hummingbirds, which weigh less than a penny. Some lost the ability to fly, becoming terrestrial runners like ostriches or swimmers like penguins. Others refined flight to perfection, like albatrosses, which can glide over the ocean for hours without flapping their wings, surfing on air currents with a grace that defies physics. And through all this diversity, through all these adaptations, birds have maintained essential characteristics that define them: feathers, wings, a light and pneumatic skeleton, an accelerated metabolism, a song that fills the empty spaces of the world. You contemplate this story and feel a profound reverence. Birds are more than animals. They are survivors, witnesses of eras that no human being will ever see. They carry in their genes the memory of lost worlds, of continents that separated and collided, of climates that changed radically, of mass extinctions and miraculous recoveries. When you look at a bird today, you are looking at the result of millions of years of evolutionary experimentation, of trial and error, of successes and failures that have shaped every aspect of its anatomy, physiology, and behavior. And there is something humbling in this, something that puts existence human in perspective. Modern humans have only existed for 300,000 years, a tiny fraction of bird history. Our civilization is only a few thousand years old. And yet, in that brief flash of time, we have managed to transform the planet in ways that profoundly affect all other life forms, including birds. But that's a thought for another time. Now you just breathe, just observe, just celebrate the continued presence of these winged creatures that make the world more beautiful, more alive, more full of possibilities. Let your mind drift now to the edge of a tranquil lake on a late summer afternoon. The surface of the water is like a mirror, reflecting the orange sky and the clouds tinted with pink and gold. And on the shore, a flock of flamingos rests. Their long, thin legs are folded beneath them, their necks curved gracefully, their bodies covered in pale pink plumes that seem to absorb and reflect the twilight light. Flamingos are social creatures, living in colonies that can include thousands of individuals. They feed by filtering water through specialized beaks, extracting algae and small crustaceans that contain carotenoids responsible for their characteristic coloring. Without this specific diet, flamingos gradually lose their color, becoming white or grayish. Their beauty, therefore, is directly linked to the environment, the quality of the water, the availability of food. They are living indicators of the health of their ecosystems, mirrors that reflect not only light, but the ecological balance of the places where they live. You watch the flamingos in silence, feeling the calm that emanates from them. There is something hypnotic about their slender forms, their slow and deliberate movements, their collective presence that transforms the landscape into something almost dreamlike. Flamingos often sleep standing up, supported on one leg only, the other tucked under their body. This posture, which would seem uncomfortable or unstable for a human, is perfectly natural for them. The locking mechanism in their joints allows them to maintain balance without constant muscular effort, conserving energy even during sleep. And there is an elegance in this, an economy of movement and energy that characterizes so many aspects of avian life. Nothing is wasted, nothing is excessive. Each adaptation serves a purpose. Each behavior is optimized for survival and well-being, without losing grace, without sacrificing beauty. You breathe along with the landscape, feeling time slow down even further. The sun continues to descend. The colors intensify briefly before they begin to fade. The flamingos remain motionless, like pink statues against the gold of the horizon. And you realize that you are witnessing one of the Earth's oldest and most constant rituals, the end of the day, the smooth transition from light to darkness, the moment when diurnal creatures retreat and nocturnal creatures awaken, when the world breathes collectively and prepares for another form of existence. Birds feel this transition deeply. Their circadian rhythms, controlled by internal biological clocks sensitive to light, dictate not only when to sleep and when to wake, but also when to migrate, when to reproduce, when to molt. They live in tune with the cycles of the planet, with the rotation of the Earth, with the orbit around the sun, with the phases of the moon that influence tides and food availability in coastal zones. They are not slaves to these cycles, but conscious participants, dancers in a cosmic choreography that has been repeated since before the existence of human consciousness. Think now of owls, those nocturnal birds that begin their activities precisely when most other birds retreat. An owl in flight is almost silent, its feathers specially adapted with serrated edges that break the airflow and eliminate the sound of flapping wings. This adaptation allows it to approach its prey undetected, making it a lethal hunter in the darkness. But there is more than function in this silence. There is an ethereal, almost ghostly quality that transforms the owl into a symbol of mystery and wisdom in countless human cultures. When you see an owl perched on a branch, its large frontal eyes fixed on you with a disconcerting intensity, you feel something primal awaken. It is not fear exactly, but a recognition that you are in the presence of something ancient, something that inhabits a world parallel to the human one, a world of shadows and silences, of sharpened perceptions and refined instincts. Owls' eyes are extraordinary. Although they cannot move within their sockets like human eyes, they are extremely large in relation to the size of the head, allowing them to capture as much light as possible. To compensate for the lack of eye movement, owls have developed the ability to rotate their heads up to 270 degrees, allowing for a panoramic view without needing to move the body. Their hearing is even more impressive. The auditory openings, hidden beneath the feathers, are asymmetrical, one positioned higher than the other. This creates a minute temporal difference in the arrival of sound to each ear, a difference that the owl's brain instantly processes to triangulate the exact location of prey, even in total darkness. An owl can detect a mouse moving under the snow meters away and dive with surgical precision, capturing it without ever having seen it. It's a form of perception that transcends human senses, a way of experiencing the world that we can only vaguely imagine. You close your eyes and try to imagine what it would be like to have the hearing of an owl. Every sound would become three-dimensional, laden with information about direction, distance, size, and movement of the source. The world would be a constantly updating sound map, where each noise tells a story, reveals a presence, suggests an opportunity or a danger. Silence would never truly be silence, for there would always be the whisper of the wind in the leaves, the rustling of small animals in the leaf litter, the distant howl of a larger predator, the flapping of wings of other nocturnal birds. And in this world of sounds, you would navigate with confidence, with a certainty that comes from millions of years of sensory adaptation, from a neural architecture perfectly attuned to the demands of hunting in darkness. There would be no confusion, no doubt, only the absolute clarity of heightened perception, only total presence in the present moment. Take a deep breath and allow the night to deepen in your imagination. Now you are on a deserted beach, the sand still warm from the day's sun, the waves breaking gently in a steady and comforting rhythm. The moon is full, large and silver, illuminating the ocean with a path of shimmering light. And along the beach, you see small figures running quickly across the sand. These are sandpipers, coastal birds with long legs and thin beaks that run along the tide line, rapidly pecking at the damp sand in search of small invertebrates left behind by the waves. Their movements are incredibly fast, almost comical in their speed and precision. They run forward when the wave recedes, quickly retreat when the next wave advances, always exactly on the edge between dry land and water, always in the right place at the right time. It is a dance synchronized with the ocean, a perfect choreography that requires impeccable timing and absolute coordination. Sandpipers and other shorebirds are masters of energy efficiency. Many species make epic migrations, flying thousands of miles along the coasts, stopping only briefly to feed in tidal zones where invertebrates are abundant. Some manage to fly for days without stopping, crossing entire oceans in direct flights that defy human understanding of endurance and navigation. During these journeys, they rely entirely on their fat reserves, burning energy at a constant rate that must be perfectly calculated. Too fast, and they will run out of fuel before reaching the next stopover point. Too slow, and they will not arrive in time to take advantage of the seasonal resources that make the journey viable. It is a delicate balance, a biological math that does not allow for significant errors. And yet, year after year, these birds make the journey successfully, guided by sharp instincts and accumulated learning. You watch the sandpipers and feel a light, almost childlike joy. There is something deeply satisfying in seeing creatures fulfilling their roles with such competence, with such unpretentious dedication. They do not seek recognition. They do not expect applause. They simply do what they must do, what they know how to do, what they have been shaped by evolution to do better than any other creature. And in this simplicity of purpose, in this clarity of existence, there is a lesson about contentment and meaning. You don't need to be extraordinary to be valuable. You don't need to change the world to matter. Just be true to your nature. Just fulfill your function. Just be present and engaged with the life that has been given to you. The sandpipers don't envy the eagles for flying higher. The eagles don't despise the sandpipers for being stuck on the beach. Each has its place, each has its role. Each contributes to the complex and interconnected tapestry of life. Let your mind wander now to a different region, a radically different environment. Imagine Antarctica, the ice continent at the southernmost end of the planet, where temperatures can drop below -50 degrees Celsius and winds can reach catastrophic speeds. It is one of the most inhospitable places on Earth, seemingly unsuitable for life. And yet, penguins live there, birds that have lost the ability to fly but have gained an unparalleled mastery in the water. Emperor penguins are the most impressive. They reproduce during the Antarctic winter, the darkest and coldest period of the year, in a ritual that defies all logic of survival. After mating, the female lays a single egg and carefully transfers it to the male, who balances it on his feet, covered by a fold of skin called the brood pouch. The female then departs for the sea, traveling sometimes hundreds of kilometers over the ice to feed. The male remains motionless, incubating the egg for more than 2 months, facing extreme temperatures, snowstorms, and near total darkness. During this period, the male penguin eats nothing. He survives entirely on his fat reserves, losing up to half his body weight. To protect themselves from the deadly cold, the males group together in dense formations called huddles, where thousands of individuals are pressed tightly against each other, sharing body heat. The penguins on the outer edge, exposed to the icy wind, gradually move to the warmer center, while those in the center eventually migrate to the edge. It's a system of cooperation without coercion, without formal leadership, just an emergent behavior that benefits everyone. When the eggs finally hatch, the chicks emerge into a brutal world, but find dedicated parents and supportive communities. And when the females return, fat and rested from the sea, they take over the care of the chicks, while the males, now dangerously thin and exhausted, make the long journey to the ocean to feed. You contemplate this story and feel something stir within you. There's a silent grandeur in the penguins' dedication, an everyday heroism that seeks no glory. They simply do what must be done for the next generation to survive, for the species to continue, for life to persist even in the most improbable places. And there's a poetic beauty in the fact that these birds, unable to fly through the skies, have conquered the oceans. When a penguin dives into the water, its terrestrial clumsiness instantly disappears. It becomes a hydrodynamic arrow capable of swimming at speeds exceeding 20 kilometers per hour, of diving to depths greater than 500 meters, of remaining submerged for more than 20 minutes. Underwater, penguins fly, using their flippers as wings, performing acrobatic maneuvers while hunting fish and crustaceans. It's a fascinating evolutionary trade-off, relinquishing the sky to master the depths, abandoning one medium to conquer another with absolute mastery. Take a deep breath and let the imaginary cold of Antarctica dissipate, now replaced by the humid warmth of a tropical rainforest at dawn. The mist still hangs between the trees, reducing visibility and creating an atmosphere of mystery and enchantment. And then you hear it, the rhythmic and unmistakable drumming of a woodpecker, hammering its beat against a tree trunk. The sound echoes through the forest, loud and clear, announcing territory and presence. You approach silently and see the bird, clinging vertically to the trunk, its head moving in a blur of speed as its beak strikes the wood repeatedly. The sound echoes through the forest, loud and clear, announcing territory and presence. Woodpeckers possess extraordinary adaptations that allow them to do something that would destroy the brain of most animals: strike hard surfaces with tremendous force, dozens of times per second, without suffering damage. A woodpecker's skull is a masterpiece of biological engineering. It has a spongy bone structure that absorbs impacts, incredibly strong neck muscles that stabilize the head, and a long, sticky tongue that can extend far beyond the beak to extract insects from deep tunnels in the wood. The brain is protected by a minimal amount of cerebrospinal fluid and is tightly attached to the skull, reducing the internal movement that would cause damage. Studies show that, during pecking, the woodpecker's brain experiences deceleration forces that would instantly kill a human. But for the woodpecker, it's simply part of daily life, a routine activity without risks. This ability is not just for feeding. The rhythmic drumming on resonant surfaces is a form of communication, a way to assert territorial dominance and attract mates without having to produce complex vocal songs. It's percussive music, a composition that varies from species to species, each with its characteristic pattern of rhythm and intensity. You close your eyes and listen only to the sound of the woodpecker, letting the hypnotic rhythm fill your consciousness. There is something primal in this sound, something that resonates with ancient parts of the human brain, parts that recognize patterns, that respond to rhythms, that find meaning in repetitions. The woodpecker's drumming is not chaotic. It has structure, it has timing, it has communicative intent. And as you listen, you connect not just with this individual bird, but with the entire lineage of woodpeckers that have echoed their presences through forests for millions of years. You become part of an audience that stretches through time, a witness to behavior that is both ancient and eternally new, always occurring for the first time for each new woodpecker that learns to peck, always echoing the accumulated wisdom of countless generations. Breathe once more and allow your imagination to take you to an urban garden, a small oasis of green amidst the concrete and glass of a modern city. It's mid-afternoon, the sun is high and hot. And there, among the cultivated flowers and pruned shrubs, you see sparrows and doves, pigeons and tanagers, birds that have learned to live alongside humans, that have found abundant resources and unexpected opportunities in our cities. These urban birds are often ignored, considered too common to deserve attention, but if you stop and truly observe, you will discover that they are as fascinating as any exotic species. Sparrows, for example, are incredibly social and intelligent. They have regional dialects in their calls, subtle variations that identify where they come from. They recognize individual human faces, remembering who has fed them and who has threatened them. They cooperate to build nests, sometimes helping other families raise their chicks, a behavior that suggests social and emotional complexity. Urban birds teach us about adaptability and resilience. When humans transformed vast natural areas into urban landscapes, many species became extinct or were forced to retreat. But some birds adapted, finding in buildings substitutes for cliffs, in parks substitutes for forests, in human food scraps a reliable source of nutrition. They learned to avoid cars, to nest in improbable spaces, to ignore the constant noise that would fill most wild animals with terror. This adaptability is not weakness or loss of wildness. It is intelligence. It is flexibility. It is the ability to see opportunities where others see only obstacles. And perhaps more importantly, the presence of these birds in urban environments serves as a constant reminder that nature is not only in distant reserves and untouched forests. It is here, now, all around you, persisting and even thriving in the spaces we have created, refusing to be completely excluded, insisting on its presence and relevance. You watch a sparrow bathing in a puddle, vigorously shaking its feathers, spreading bright droplets in the sun. It is a simple moment, prosaic even, but there is a visible joy in the activity, an evident pleasure in the sensation of cool water against the skin, in the cleansing of feathers, in the ritual of self-care that keeps the plumage functional and healthy. This sparrow is not concerned with environmental policies or habitat loss. It is simply living, taking advantage of available resources, fulfilling its instincts for hygiene and maintenance, and in doing so, it reminds you that life is resilient, that it finds paths, that it persists against improbable odds. Where there is a chance, however small, life will seize it. Where there is a sliver of opportunity, however narrow, life will pass through it. Urban birds are ambassadors of this fundamental truth, winged messengers that bring nature to wherever you are, ensuring that you are never completely isolated from the wild world that gave rise to us. Let your breath deepen and your mind expand again, now encompassing not a specific place, but a concept, a broad and encompassing idea. Think about flight itself, the ability that defines birds more than any other characteristic. Flight is one of the most extraordinary evolutionary achievements of life on Earth. It requires perfect coordination between multiple systems, a light but strong skeleton, powerful but efficient muscles, sophisticated but flexible feathers, accelerated but sustainable metabolism, specialized organs such as the air sacs that allow unidirectional flow of air through the lungs, maximizing oxygen extraction. Every aspect of avian anatomy is optimized for flight, from hollow bones reinforced with internal structures similar to honeycombs, to the proportionally large heart that pumps blood rapidly to energy-hungry muscles. But flight is more than mechanics and physiology. It is freedom. It is perspective. It is a fundamentally different way of experiencing space and movement. When a bird flies, it does not only move horizontally like terrestrial animals, it moves three-dimensionally, rising and falling as easily as it advances, responding to invisible air currents, harnessing rising thermals to gain altitude effortlessly, gliding in long arcs that convert height into distance. The world viewed from above is transformed. Land borders lose meaning. Rivers become bright lines, forests become green textures, mountains become waves in an ocean of land frozen in time. And in this elevated perspective, there is a different understanding of scale, of connection, of continuity. Everything is connected when seen from above. There is no absolute separation, only gradations, transitions, continuous flows from one type of landscape to another. You imagine now that you have wings, that your arms have transformed into aerodynamic surfaces covered in feathers. You take a few steps, jump, and suddenly you are no longer bound to the ground. The wind catches you, sustains you, and you rise. The movement is both strange and perfectly natural, as if your body always knew how to do this, but only temporarily forgot. You flap your wings and feel the power in your pectoral muscles, the resistance of the air, the immediate response of the environment to your actions. You climb higher, and the world below begins to shrink. The trees become broccoli, the houses become toy boxes, the people become moving dots. And you feel, perhaps for the first time truly, what it means to be free from earthly limitations, what it means to have the entire sky as your domain, what it means to be able to go wherever you want, limited only by your endurance and courage. This fantasy of flying is universally human, present in myths and dreams of all cultures. Icarus flying too close to the sun, Daedalus creating wings of feathers and wax, gods and angels endowed with wings as symbols of transcendence. Humans have always envied birds, always desired their seemingly effortless mobility. And when we finally managed to fly through machines, it was partly through the obsessive study of birds, of understanding how they manipulate the air, how their wings generate lift and control. But even with airplanes, helicopters, and rockets, mechanical flight has never completely replicated the elegance, efficiency, and intimacy of natural flight. A bird needs no fuel beyond food, needs no maintenance beyond natural hygiene care, produces no deafening noise or toxic pollution, simply flies as it has always flown, as it will always fly, as long as there are birds and air to support them. Breathe deeply once more and feel your imagination return gently to earth. You are back in your body, in your place, but now carry memories of imagined flights, of elevated perspectives, of impossible freedoms. And this mental journey, however brief, has subtly transformed you. It has reminded you that there are other ways of being, other experiences of reality, other forms of consciousness navigating this shared planet. Birds do not live in the same world as you, even when they inhabit the same physical spaces. Their world is of winds and thermal currents, of magnetic fields and polarization of light, of songs and colors that communicate truths that human words could never express. And yet, there is overlap. There are moments of connection. When you hear a bird sing and feel peace, when you see a bird fly and feel awe, when you observe a bird caring for its young and feel tenderness. In these moments, the boundaries between species briefly dissolve. You are simply living beings sharing a planet, recognizing each other, honoring each other's presence. Think now about the sounds that birds produce beyond song. Think of the hoarse caw of a crow, the shrill screech of a parrot, the soft cooing of a dove, the insistent chirping of hungry chicks, the menacing hiss of a bird defending its territory. Each sound carries information, context, intention. Crows, for example, possess one of the most complex vocal communication systems in the animal kingdom. They have different calls for different types of dangers, specific alerts that indicate whether the predator comes from the ground or the air, whether it is near or far, whether it is an immediate threat or just something to observe. Young crows learn these calls by listening to adults, and different populations of crows develop distinct dialects, regional variations that function almost like human accents. More impressively, crows seem capable of referential communication, of using calls to share information about specific objects and events, an ability that was thought to be exclusive to humans and perhaps some primates. The intelligence of crows and other corvids, such as jackdaws and magpies, is surprising and often underestimated. They are able to solve complex puzzles, to use tools in creative ways, to plan for the future by hiding food in multiple locations and remembering where each item is, to recognize individual human faces and hold grudges against those who have threatened them, even teaching their offspring to be wary of them. Finished persons, in controlled experiments, crows have demonstrated an understanding of cause and effect, the ability to understand water displacement, similar to Aesop's fable about the crow in the pitcher, and even something resembling a theory of mind, the ability to understand that other individuals have perspectives and knowledge different from their own. This intelligence is not mere instinct or rigid programming. It is cognitive flexibility. It is learning. It is something that approaches what we would call thought. You mentally observe a crow perched on a nearby branch, its black plumage gleaming with bluish and purplish reflections in the sun. Its dark eyes stare back at you, and there is something unsettling in that gaze. It is not the empty gaze of a merely instinctive animal. There is presence there. There is something akin to consideration, evaluation. The crow is studying you as much as you are studying it. It is deciding whether you are a threat or an opportunity, whether to fly or remain, whether it can learn something useful from this interaction. And in that moment of mutual recognition, you realize that the line between human and animal, between person and bird, is not as clear as it seems. Both are conscious beings, both perceive and respond to the world, both carry individual stories and unique memories. The difference is one of degree, not of fundamental type. And recognizing this is both humbling and elevating, diminishing human importance while expanding the circle of respect and empathy to include other minds, other experiences, other valid ways of being conscious. Let your mind calm now, floating gently like a feather drifting down through the calm air. Think of the feathers themselves, those marvelous structures that are unique to birds, that never evolved in any other group of vertebrates. A feather is a work of microscopic engineering. From the central shaft, called the rachis, radiate hundreds of barbs. From each barb extend hundreds of barbules, and from each barbule project tiny hooks called hamuli. These hooks interlock with the barbules of adjacent barbs, creating a continuous and resistant surface that is both light and strong, flexible and durable. When a feather becomes disorganized, the bird simply runs it through its beak, and the hooks reconnect, restoring structural integrity. It's an elegant self-repair system, without the need for tools or complex processes. Feathers serve multiple functions beyond flight. They provide thermal insulation, keeping warm air trapped close to the body. They repel water through a combination of physical structure and oils produced by the uropygial gland, which birds spread during preening. They create colors through pigments and microscopic structures, allowing for elaborate visual displays. They dampen noises, as in owls, or amplify sounds, as in woodpeckers. They detect air currents through sensitive nerve endings at their bases. And during molting, when old feathers are gradually replaced by new ones, the process is carefully coordinated so that the bird never loses the ability to fly, never becomes too vulnerable, never sacrifices function for renewal. It is an act of delicate balance, executed automatically by hormonal and biological processes refined by eons of evolutionary pressure. You imagine holding a feather found on the ground, examining it closely. It is light as thought, but perfectly formed, every detail evident when observed with attention. The silky texture beneath your fingers, the colors that change according to the angle of the light, the feeling of fragility combined with surprising strength. This feather was once part of a living being, was once attached to the body of a bird that flew, that sang, that lived its life following the rhythms of nature. Now it is here, separated from its origin, but still carrying beauty and function. It could be blown by the wind, carried miles away. It could decompose slowly, returning its elements to the soil. It could be collected by another animal to line a nest. It could be found by a curious child who will keep it as a treasure. Each possibility contains its own poetry, its own cycle of meaning and transformation. Take a deep breath and feel the tranquility deepening. Now, turn your attention to the small birds that inhabit bushes and dense vegetation, those that are rarely seen but often heard. Wrens, ovenbirds, gnatcatchers, these small and discreet birds that live almost secret lives in the shadow of forests and gardens. They move quickly through the vegetation, hopping from branch to branch, investigating each leaf, each crack in the bark, in search of tiny insects that constitute their diet. Their movements are so fast that it is difficult to follow them with your eyes. They appear, disappear, reappear elsewhere like winged magicians, always busy, always in motion, always answering the imperative to find enough food to fuel their rapid metabolisms. These small birds live in a world of accelerated time. Their hearts beat hundreds of times per minute even at rest, even more during intense activity. They need to eat almost constantly, consuming daily a proportion of their body weight that would be unthinkable for larger animals. And yet, there is no neurotic haste in their movements. There is efficiency, there is purpose, but there is also a quality of presence that seems paradoxical given the speed of their actions. Every movement is complete, every investigation is thorough. Every decision about where to look next is informed by experience and instinct. They don't waste energy on anxiety or hesitation. They simply do what needs to be done, moment to moment, without projecting into the future or dwelling on the past. It's involuntary mindfulness, an awareness that arises naturally from a way of life that allows no distractions. You hear the song of a wren, a quick and complex trill that seems too big to come from such a small bird. The volume is surprising, the clarity is impressive, the complexity reveals itself when you pay true attention. Each musical phrase contains subtle variations, small improvisations on a basic theme that identify the individual singing. Male wrens often sing duets with their partners, coordinating their phrases with millisecond precision to create a single song, apparently produced by a single bird. This synchronicity requires sophisticated communication, joint practice, and a level of cooperation that defies purely mechanical explanations. There is something approaching collaborative creativity, shared artistic expression, beauty created by two beings working in perfect harmony. Think now of birds that live in extreme environments, those that have thrived in places where survival seems impossible. In the Sahara Desert, where daytime temperatures can exceed 120 degrees Fahrenheit and water is extremely scarce, birds like the cream-colored courser have found ways to thrive. They obtain all the moisture they need from their diet of insects and seeds, never needing to drink water directly. They shelter in the shade during the hottest hours, becoming active during dawn and dusk when temperatures are more tolerable. Their feathers provide insulation not only against the cold, but also against excessive heat, creating a layer of air that protects the skin from direct solar radiation. And when necessary, they can enter states of controlled hypothermia, slightly reducing their body temperature to conserve water that would be lost through the rapid breathing needed to cool down. In high-altitude rainforests, where the mist is constant and nighttime temperatures can drop dangerously, hummingbirds, like the booted rackettail, have developed different but equally ingenious strategies. In addition to the nocturnal torpor already mentioned, some species can share body heat by huddling together in sheltered locations. Others carefully choose their nighttime roosts, seeking out places protected from wind and exposure where the microclimate is a few degrees warmer than the general environment. These decisions, seemingly simple, can mean the difference between surviving until morning and dying of hypothermia before dawn. Each bird carries in its instincts and learning the accumulated knowledge of countless generations who have faced the same challenges, who have made the right choices, who have survived to pass on not only genes, but also behaviors learned through observation of parents and peers. You breathe deeply and feel the wonder growing inside you. The resilience of birds, their ability to find solutions to extreme environmental problems, is a testament to the versatility of life, to the capacity of evolution to sculpt forms suited to virtually any available ecological niche. Where there is a possibility, however remote, life will explore it. And birds, with their mobility and adaptability, have been especially successful in this exploration, colonizing practically every terrestrial habitat on the planet, from the equator to the poles, from sea level to the highest mountains. Each population is finely tuned to its local environment. Each species is a unique experiment in how to be a bird in that specific place, in that specific set of conditions. And altogether, all the more than 10,000 species of birds form a mosaic of diversity that enriches the world, that makes it more complex, more interesting, more alive. Let your mind drift now to the question of territoriality and social behavior in birds. Some species are fiercely territorial, defending specific areas against all intruders of their species. A male nightingale singing in his territory isn't just celebrating spring. He's declaring ownership, warning other males to stay away, announcing to females that this space is under his protection and control. If another male intrudes, the confrontation can be violent, although it rarely results in serious injury. Usually, ritualized displays of aggression, louder and more intense singing, threatening postures, and aerial chases are enough to establish dominance and make the intruder retreat. These conflicts, though intense, are governed by implicit rules that prevent unnecessary harm. The survival of both competitors is more important than absolute victory in any individual confrontation. Other species are highly social, living in flocks that can include hundreds or thousands of individuals. Starlings, for example, form murmurations, phenomena in which thousands of birds fly in formations that seem to have a life of their own, undulating and flowing through the sky in hypnotic patterns of beauty and coordination. Each individual bird responds only to the movements of its immediate neighbors, usually 6 or 7 other birds, but the collective result is an emergent behavior of impressive complexity. The flock moves like a single organism, expanding and contracting, rising and falling, avoiding predators with coordinated maneuvers that confuse and disorient hawks and eagles that try to isolate and capture them. There is no leader in the traditional sense. There is no choreographer planning the movements. It's pure self-organization, a complex system emerging from simple interactions multiplied by thousands. You mentally observe one of these murmurations at dusk, the sky tinged with warm colors, and the birds forming patterns that flow and transform continuously. It's like watching living smoke, or water defying gravity, or a single entity composed of thousands of individual but completely coordinated parts. And there's something deeply moving in that. Something that speaks to collectivity and individuality coexisting harmoniously. Each starling maintains its identity, its needs, its survival reflexes, but at the same time, it participates in something larger than itself, contributes to a pattern that transcends any individual bird. It's a visual metaphor for how communities can function, for how the whole can be greater than the sum of its parts, without annihilating the parts, for how cooperation and autonomy are not opposites but complements. Breathe once more, letting the air flow naturally, effortlessly. Think now of birds that interact intimately with other species in fascinating symbiotic relationships. The honey-guide bird, native to Africa, possesses an extraordinary behavior that illustrates interspecific cooperation. When it finds a beehive, this bird seeks out humans or honey badgers and guides them to the hive through specific calls and short directed flights. Once humans or badgers open the hive and extract the honey, the bird feeds on the honeycombs, larvae, and wax left behind. It's a mutually beneficial relationship that seems to require not only instinct, but also cultural learning, passed down from generation to generation. Young honey guides learn by observing adults, understanding that certain creatures can be recruited as allies in obtaining otherwise inaccessible resources. Other symbiotic relationships include birds that follow army ants, feeding on the insects flushed out by the ant swarm, egrets that follow buffalo and cattle, catching insects disturbed by the large herbivores, Seabirds that follow whales and dolphins, taking advantage of fish pushed to the surface during coordinated hunts. In each case, there's recognition of opportunity. There's adaptive behavior that takes advantage of the presence and actions of other species. And these interactions reveal that the natural world isn't just competition and conflict, it's also cooperation, mutualistic opportunism, creative meeting of needs that benefits multiple parties. Birds, with their mobility and intelligence, are particularly adept at identifying and exploiting these opportunities, at weaving their lives within complex ecological webs where each species affects and is affected by countless others. You contemplate these networks of relationship and feel your understanding of interconnectedness deepening. Nothing lives in isolation. Each organism exists within multiple contexts, affecting and being affected by physical conditions, other organisms, temporal and spatial changes. Birds are particularly visible and mobile nodes in these networks, crossing ecological boundaries, connecting habitats through migrations, transporting seeds in their digestive systems, controlling insect populations, serving as prey for predators. Larger, thereby influencing the structure and function of entire ecosystems. Their presence or absence can have cascading effects that reverberate through multiple trophic levels. And understanding this is not just an intellectual exercise. It is an emotional perception of belonging, of being part of something much larger and older than any individual life, of existing within a web whose complexity far exceeds our ability to trace all the threads. Let your awareness expand now to consider the role of birds in human culture, in the stories we tell about ourselves and about the world. Since time immemorial, birds have captured the human imagination. They appear in mythologies of all cultures, often as messengers between worlds, as symbols of transcendence, as spiritual guides. The eagle represents power and vision. The dove symbolizes peace and hope. The raven is associated with wisdom and magic, sometimes with omens and mystery. The phoenix, though mythological, expresses human desires for renewal and immortality. These associations are not arbitrary. They arise from deep and prolonged observation of avian behavior, from recognition of qualities that humans admire and aspire to. Birds have inspired art, music, poetry, and literature throughout all recorded history. Painters have tried to capture their colors and movements. Composers have imitated their songs and melodies. Poets have used flight as a metaphor for freedom, soul, imagination. Writers have populated their stories with birds as characters, symbols, and omens. And in the modern era, birdwatching has become one of the most popular hobbies in the world, practiced by millions of people who find peace, joy, and connection with nature through the simple act of identifying, observing, and appreciating birds in their natural habitats. There is something deeply satisfying in seeing a new bird for the first time, in adding a species to one's personal list of observations, in witnessing rare or spectacular behaviors. It's a form of collection that takes nothing from the world, that causes no harm, that only celebrates diversity and presence. You think of birdwatchers rising before dawn, walking silently through forests, sitting patiently at observation points, binoculars raised, eyes alert for any movement, ears attuned to any sound. There is a meditative quality to this practice, a focused attention that calms the mind and opens the senses. It is not hunting in the traditional sense, but there is something similar in the patience required, in the need to read environmental signs, to predict behaviors, to be present and responsive. And when the desired bird finally appears, when it is clearly seen and identified, there is a moment of silent triumph, of gratitude for the privilege of the encounter, of ephemeral but real connection with a life form completely different, but sharing the same moment, the same space, the same planet spinning through cosmic void. Breathe deeply and allow this image to dissolve, replaced now by thoughts about conservation and the future of birds. The hard truth is that many species of birds are in decline, some critically endangered, some already extinct. Habitat loss, climate change, pollution, hunting, collisions with human structures, all these anthropogenic pressures add up to create challenges that many species struggle to overcome. Each extinction is an irreversible loss, not only of unique genes and adaptations refined for millions of years, but of songs that will never be sung again, of colors that will never be seen again, of behaviors that will never be witnessed again. It is an impoverishment of the world, a reduction of possibilities, a silencing of voices that enriched the chorus of life. But there is also hope. Conservation efforts have had remarkable successes, bringing species back from the brink of extinction. The California condor, reduced to just 22 individuals in the 1980s, now numbers more than 500 thanks to intensive captive breeding and reintroduction programs. The Puerto Rican parrot, which once numbered only 13 wild individuals, is slowly recovering through sustained efforts of habitat conservation and control of introduced predators. These success stories demonstrate that when humans decide to value and protect avian life, positive changes are possible. And it's not just charismatic and iconic species that matter. Each species, however discrete or common it may seem, plays roles in its ecosystems, contributes to the resilience and functionality of complex ecological networks. Protecting birds is protecting the natural systems on which we all depend. You feel a mixture of sadness and determination. Sadness for the losses that have already occurred, for the silenced voices, for the skies impoverished, but also a determination to value and protect what remains, to make choices that support the continuation of avian life, to recognize that the world is immensely richer, more interesting, more beautiful with birds in it. Each individual action may seem small and inadequate in the face of the magnitude of the challenges, but actions accumulate, choices add up, and cultural transformation always begins with individuals recognizing value, changing behavior, influencing others through example and conversation. Birds do not need humans to save them in a dramatic sense. They simply need enough space, enough resources, enough protection against the most destructive pressures. And offering that is within humanity's reach if we choose to do so. Let your breathing flow again, slow and steady. Return now to the image of a peaceful dawn, the starting point of this contemplative journey. The sky is gradually clearing. The first golden lights touch the treetops, and the birds begin to sing, one by one, then in growing choruses, filling the air with melodies that have no words but carry deep meanings. You listen and do not try to interpret or translate. Simply allow the sounds to enter, to resonate, to touch places within you that are not reachable through language or rational thought. The dawn chorus of birds is one of the most consistent and universal natural phenomena on the planet. It happened yesterday, it is happening today, it will happen tomorrow. Everywhere there are birds and mornings. It is a daily affirmation of continuity, of renewal, of persistent presence of life. You realize that this journey through the world of birds was not just about learning facts, although you have learned many. It was about cultivating a different kind of attention, a calmer and more receptive way of encountering the world. It was about recognizing that knowledge is not just information, but also experience. Not just intellectual understanding, but also emotional and sensory connection. The birds you imagined, observed mentally, heard in your mind, are real. They exist now, somewhere, doing what birds do. Flying, singing, feeding, resting, caring for chicks, migrating, simply being. and their existence does not depend on your knowledge about them, but your appreciation, your reverence, your care can be deeply enriched by this knowledge, by this dedicated attention, by this time spent in gentle contemplation. Take a deep breath one last time and feel the gratitude arising naturally. Gratitude for the birds, for all that they are and represent. Gratitude for the ability to perceive beauty, to feel wonder, to connect with different life forms but sharing this world. Gratitude for the continued existence of diversity, for the persistence of life in all its creative and surprising forms. Gratitude for the privilege of being alive on a planet where there are still forests full of songs, skies crossed by wings, mornings announced by avian melodies. And with that gratitude, a silent commitment to honor this gift, to live in ways that respect and support the continuation of natural beauty, to be a gentle and conscious presence in the world, just as the birds are, fulfilling their roles without pretense, existing fully without the need for external validation, simply being what they are with an integrity that is both humble and magnificent. The day is now dawning completely in your imagination. The light is clear and fresh. The air is full of promise. And you are here, present, awake, connected with something larger and older than yourself. The birds will continue their lives, indifferent to your admiration, but benefited by your respect and care. And you will continue yours, enriched by this time of contemplation, by this journey through facts and wonders, through knowledge and enchantment. The world keeps turning, the seasons keep changing, the birds keep flying, singing, living. And you, now a little calmer, a little more present, a little more connected, also continue, carrying with you memories of wings and songs, of colors and flights, of small lives lived with grace and dedication that inspire and uplift. Allow yourself now to rest completely in this serene awareness. There is nothing more to do, nothing to achieve, nothing to prove. Just be here, breathing, existing, being part of the tapestry of life that includes you and the birds and everything else. The silence between the songs is as important as the songs themselves. The space between the flights is as necessary as the movement. And you, at this moment, inhabit that space of deep stillness, of peace that does not depend on external circumstances, but springs from an internal recognition of belonging, of adequacy, of being exactly where you should be, doing exactly what you should do, which at this moment is simply being, simply resting, simply allowing the world to be what it is and you to be who you are, without effort, without resistance, without the need for anything to be different from what already is. The birds teach us this through their simple and complex existences. They don't fight against their nature. They don't wish to be something else. They accept the gifts and limitations of their forms, their instincts, their places in the world. And in doing so, in living fully within their particular natures, they achieve a form of perfection that is not absolute, but is complete, not permanent, but is real, not self-aware, but is totally authentic. And this authenticity, this integrity of being, is something that resonates deeply with the human aspiration to live meaningful lives, to be true to oneself, to find peace not through conquest or accumulation, but through acceptance and presence. So, as you allow this contemplation to come to its natural end, carry with you not only facts about birds, but this more subtle quality of gentle attention, of calm presence, of openness to the beauty and complexity of the world. When you hear a bird sing, remember that you are listening to the result of millions of years of evolutionary refinement, a performance that is simultaneously functional and transcendent. When you see a bird fly, remember the miracle of aerial locomotion, of the freedom and perspective it represents. When you observe a bird simply resting, Remember the wisdom of guilt-free rest, of mindful stillness that restores and renews. And when you contemplate the future of birds, remember that their future is intertwined with the future of all living things, including humans, that we all share this unique and fragile planet, that we are all participants in the great story of life that began billions of years ago and continues to unfold in unpredictable but always fascinating ways. May this journey through the world of birds have brought you some measure of peace, of enchantment, of renewed connection with nature and with your own deeper, calmer nature. May the songs of birds continue to fill your dawns with beauty. May the flight of birds continue to inspire your dreams of freedom. May the simple presence of birds continue to remind you that the world is alive, pulsating, filled with mysteries and wonders that no amount of knowledge can ever completely exhaust, but that each moment of genuine attention can illuminate a little more, reveal a little more, celebrate a little more. Breathe, rest, allow yourself to simply be as the birds are, without justification, without apology, without the need to be more or different. You are enough. This moment is enough. Life, with all its challenges and beauties, is enough. And the birds flying through the skies of this shared planet are silent messengers of this simple and profound truth, that there is beauty here, now, accessible to anyone willing to pause, observe, listen, and appreciate. May you always find time for that pause, for that observation, for that listening. May you always have eyes to see the wings and ears to hear the songs. And may you always keep in your heart a place of honor for these extraordinary creatures that make the world lighter, more musical, more alive. If you enjoyed this contemplative journey through the world of birds, if you found here some moment of peace, some insight that resonated, some image that will stay with you, consider sharing this experience. Leave your thoughts in the comments, your reflections on what birds mean to you, your own stories of avian encounters that touched your soul. And if you know someone who could benefit from this space of calm and discovery, from this refuge of words and contemplation, share generously. The world needs more quiet, more gentle attention, more celebration of the life forms that coexist with us. Together, through small gestures of appreciation and care, we can cultivate a culture that values and protects birds, that recognizes their importance not only ecologically, but also spiritually and aesthetically, that ensures that future generations will also be able to wake up to the sound of songs at dawn, will also be able to see wings cutting through the sky, will also be able to find peace and inspiration in the simple but profound presence of birds. But before you completely leave this space of contemplation, before you allow sleep to fully envelop you, or you return to the activities of the day, remain here just a little longer. There are still some whispers about the birds that deserve to be heard, some gentle truths that can further deepen this feeling of peace that now surrounds you like an invisible cloak. Think of the birds that live their entire lives in tree canopies, never touching the ground. There are species of hummingbirds, swifts, and some birds of paradise that are born in nests suspended from high branches, learn to fly among dense foliage, feed on nectar and insects captured in midair, and eventually die without ever having felt solid ground beneath their claws. For these beings, a world is vertical, three-dimensional in a way that defies human experience. There is no walking, no trails, no sensation of weight being completely supported by a solid surface. There is only continuous flight, temporary landing on flexible branches that sway in the wind, constant navigation through a green labyrinth of leaves, flowers, and filtered rays of sunlight. You imagine what it would be like to experience reality in this way. Every movement would be a flight, Every rest would be a negotiation with gravity and balance. Every moment would be a subtle dance with the air and the invisible currents that run through it. There would be no feeling of being grounded, anchored, connected to the earth in the way that terrestrial creatures experience. Instead, there would be a constant lightness, a feeling of always being between places, always in transition, always suspended between the sky and a ground that remains abstract and distant. And yet, these birds do not feel lost or insecure. This is the only world they know, and within it, they move with absolute confidence, with unquestionable grace, with a perfect fitness that comes from millions of years of evolutionary specialization. This aerial existence reminds us that reality is not a single universal thing, but rather multiple perspectives, multiple valid experiences of the same physical space. What is solid ground for you is an inaccessible ceiling for subterranean creatures. What is the surface of the water for you is both ceiling and floor for fish. And what is the empty space between tree and sky for you is the complete habitat, the whole world for these arboreal birds. Each species inhabits not only a physical place, but a unique phenomenological reality built by the capabilities of their bodies, by the needs of their ecologies, by the evolutionary histories that brought them to this present moment. Breathe slowly and let this multiplicity of worlds amaze you. All coexisting, all overlapping, all equally real for those who inhabit them. And you, with your ability to imagine, to empathize, to understand through analogy and metaphor, can briefly visit these other worlds, can touch their edges, can glimpse what it is like to be something other than human. This ability is one of the most precious gifts of consciousness. Not only to exist in your own limited experience, but to expand through imagination and knowledge, touching distant realities, honoring diverse perspectives, recognizing that the universe is immensely richer and more complex than any individual experience can capture. Now turn your attention to a particularly poignant phenomenon, the mourning song of certain species when they lose a partner. Birds that form lasting pair bonds, sometimes for life, demonstrate behaviors that resemble grief when a partner dies. Geese who have lost their mates may spend weeks emitting melancholic calls, searching in familiar places, displaying signs of observable depression. Macaws, known for their fidelity to single partners, have been observed refusing food, becoming listless, or even dying of apparent sadness after the loss. Crows conduct something that looks like a funeral ritual, gathering around a dead member of their flock, vocalizing in ways distinct from their normal calls. These behaviors raise profound questions about the inner life of birds, about the extent of their emotional capabilities. It is difficult to observe such behaviors and not recognize something familiar, something that resonates with the human experience of loss and grief. Of course, we must be cautious about excessive anthropomorphizing, about projecting human experiences where they may not apply. But we must also recognize that emotions, at their most basic level, are adaptive responses to important circumstances. Forming strong bonds with partners who will cooperate in raising offspring is evolutionarily advantageous. And if such bonds exist, then mechanisms for feeling their rupture would also make sense from an adaptive point of view. The pain of loss, however difficult it may be to experience, serves purposes. It motivates searching, prevents premature abandonment of partners, reinforces the importance of valuable relationships. You contemplate this and feel a deep emotional connection. The ability to feel loss, to mourn absence, is not exclusively human. It is shared, to some extent, with other creatures who also form bonds, who also invest in relationships, who also experience the severing of these bonds as something meaningful. And recognizing this does not diminish the human experience. On the contrary, it enriches it, contextualizes it within a broader history of sentient life, of consciousnesses that care, that feel, that respond to the world not only mechanically, but with something approaching genuine emotion. Birds, in this light, are not so different. They are companions on this journey of existence, subjects of their own lives, bearers of their own inner experiences that, although directly inaccessible, can be respected and honored. Let your breath deepen even further, each inhale bringing calm, each exhale releasing residual tension. Think now about the sounds birds make with their wings. Not just the silence of owls, already mentioned, but the active sounds that some species intentionally produce. The males of certain manakin species perform elaborate dances during courtship, and part of this performance includes sounds produced by the wings. They flap their wings in specific ways to create snaps, buzzes, and trills that are an integral part of the display. It's body percussion, music made not through vocalizations, but through specialized movement. Modified flight feathers vibrate or collide in ways that produce specific frequencies, and muscles precisely control the timing and intensity of these sound productions. Pigeons produce a characteristic whistle when they fly abruptly, a result of air passing through specialized feathers. This sound functions as an alarm, alerting other members of the group to potential danger. When a pigeon detects a threat and flies away quickly, its whistling flight communicates urgency without the need for vocalization, allowing a quick response from the entire group. It's communication through mechanical sound, a form of language that doesn't require the complex vocal organ that produces songs. And there is elegance in this evolutionary solution, in this use of already existing structures for additional communicative purposes. Evolution often works like this, not creating novelties from scratch, but modifying and repurposing existing structures, finding new functions for old forms, discovering latent possibilities in characteristics that originally served other purposes. You listen mentally to these sounds of wings, these snaps and whistles and buzzes that add layers to the avian symphony. And you realize that communication between birds is multisensory, not limited to vocalizations. There are body movements, visual displays of plumage, postures that communicate intention and emotional state, and yes, sounds produced in non-vocal ways. The social life of birds is rich and complex, woven from multiple channels of information that operate simultaneously, creating a tapestry of meaning that any competent bird within its species can read and interpret instantly. And this communicative competence, this fluency in multimodal languages, is achieved through a combination of instinct and learning, of genetic predisposition and accumulated experience, of innate abilities shaped by specific social contexts. Breathe and allow your mind to float gently to another aspect of avian life, the phenomenon of anting. Many birds perform a curious behavior where they rub themselves with ants, allowing the insects to walk on their feathers or pick up ants in their beaks and apply them directly to their plumage. The formic acid produced by the ants seems to serve as a natural pesticide, killing mites and other parasites that infest feathers. But observations suggest that there may be more than just an antiparasitic function. Some birds seem to enter almost trance-like states during anting, with wings spread, eyes half closed, slow and apparently pleasurable movements. It is possible that formic acid produces some stimulating or even slightly intoxicating effect, a form of self-medication that also provides something akin to pleasure. This behavior, observed in more than 200 species of birds, reveals additional layers of behavioral sophistication. Birds do not just react instinctively to immediate stimuli. They engage in complex maintenance behaviors, use environmental resources in creative ways, and possibly even seek experiences that we can only describe as pleasurable. The line between need and pleasure, between function and fruition, is blurred. Perhaps it doesn't need to be clear. Perhaps evolution often intertwines function with positive experience, rewarding adaptive behaviors with pleasant sensations, ensuring that they are repeated. Eating is not just obtaining nutrients, it is savoring, feeling satisfaction. Flying is not just locomotion, it is an experience that, if birds could report, they might describe as joyful, free, fulfilling. You ponder the inner life of birds, about what they subjectively experience while performing their daily activities. It's a mystery that can never be completely solved, an epistemic gap that will always remain. You cannot be a bird. You cannot feel what a bird feels. But you can respect the possibility. You can honor the probability that there is something that is being a bird, some subjective experience that, although different from the human one, is real and meaningful to the being that lives it. And this respect, this willingness to recognize consciousness and experience beyond the boundaries of humanity, is a form of deep humility, a recognition that the universe contains multiple ways of feeling, perceiving, and being, all worthy of moral and ethical consideration. Let your breath continue its natural rhythm, effortlessly, without conscious control. You are deeply relaxed now, your mind floating gently between thoughts about birds and an ever-deepening stillness. Think briefly about nocturnal birds beyond owls. Nighthawks and whippoorwills, birds that rest during the day perfectly camouflaged on branches or on the ground, indistinguishable from tree bark or dry leaves. At dusk, they become active, flying with huge open mouths, catching insects in flight. Their mottled and textured plumage makes them almost invisible when still, a perfect example of camouflage that depends not only on color, but on pattern and behavior. There is something deeply reassuring in knowing that while you sleep, there are birds that are just beginning their activities, that the world continues its dance of life day and night, that there is never a moment where everything is still, where nothing is happening. There is always movement, there is always active life somewhere. And this continuity, this incessant flow of existence is stabilizing. The world doesn't depend on you to continue. It simply continues, and you are part of it, contributing when awake, resting when necessary, trusting that everything is sustained through countless interactions, countless lives living their particular purposes. Whippoorwills possess a particularly remarkable behavior. Some migratory species fly thousands of miles over oceans on uninterrupted nocturnal journeys. They navigate by the stars, maintain altitude and direction for hours on end, cross stretches of water where there is no place to land or rest. If they hesitated, if they doubted, they would fall into the ocean and die. But they don't hesitate. They simply fly, driven by something deeper than doubt, stronger than fear. And eventually they reach land, find suitable habitat, fulfill another stage of their life cycles. This absolute confidence, this total surrender to the process, is something that humans often struggle to achieve, always questioning, always doubting, always looking for guarantees that do not exist. Birds teach us, through their silent examples, that sometimes it is necessary to simply trust and fly, simply act without waiting for complete certainty, simply move forward because moving forward is what must be done. Breathe once more, feeling your whole body relaxed and comfortable.
Think now about the birds that live in insular environments, on isolated islands where they have evolved in unique directions, developing characteristics not found anywhere else. The Galapagos Islands, where Darwin observed finches with beaks adapted to different food sources, each species specialized but all descended from a common ancestor. The Hawaiian Islands, where honeycreeper birds radiated in an explosion of diversity, occupying varied niches with an elegance that demonstrates the power of natural selection operating in isolated contexts. Each island is an evolutionary experiment, a natural laboratory where life adapts to specific conditions without interference from continental forms. But these insular birds are also particularly vulnerable.
Evolving without mammalian predators, Many have lost the ability or willingness to fly, becoming terrestrial. When humans arrived, bringing rats, cats, pigs, these defenseless birds were decimated. Countless unique species, which took millions of years to evolve, were extinct in centuries or even decades after human contact. It is a silent tragedy, an irreversible loss of life forms that will never exist again. Each insular extinction is like burning a unique library, destroying knowledge that cannot be recreated. And this carries moral weight. It should carry responsibility. Where humans go, they bring impacts. And where there is power to impact, there is responsibility to do so consciously, minimizing harm, protecting fragility, honoring the preciousness of life forms that, once lost, are gone forever. But even amidst losses, there are surprising resiliences. Some insular birds have survived against dramatic odds, sometimes thanks to efforts to minimize intensive conservation efforts. The New Zealand kakapo, a large flightless parrot, was reduced to just 50 individuals at the end of the 20th century. Every bird was named, monitored, protected. Breeding was carefully managed, and the population slowly began to recover. Each chick that survives is a celebrated victory, each successful breeding season a reason for renewed hope. These stories remind us that it's not too late, that dedicated effort can make a difference, that life wants to persist and will find a way if given the smallest chance. You feel this mixture of sadness and hope, of recognition of past losses and future possibilities. And this mixture is appropriate, it's honest. The world is not just tragic nor just inspiring, it is both, simultaneously. And our task is to inhabit this tension with grace, honoring what was lost while we work to protect what remains. The birds, in their vulnerability and resilience, in their beauty and fragility, call us to be better guardians, more conscious inhabitants of this shared planet, not because we are superior, but because we have, temporarily at least, more power. And with power comes responsibility. Comes the moral obligation to wield that power with wisdom, with care, with respect for life in all its diverse and precious forms. Your breathing now is so soft you barely notice it. Your mind is quiet, floating in a space of deep peace. The images of birds continue dancing gently in your consciousness, but they are becoming more abstract, more dreamlike. Feathers floating, wings beating in slow motion, songs echoing through impossible spaces. You are on the border between wakefulness and sleep, in that liminal territory where thoughts become dreams, where reality and imagination merge without clear boundaries. And in that space, one last gentle truth presents itself. Birds are masters of presence. They don't carry the past as a burden, don't project the future with anxiety. They live now, always now, responding to the present moment with all their attention and ability. When a bird is in its nest, it is completely in the nest. When it is flying, it is completely in flight. When it is singing, it is completely in the song. There is no division, no fragmentation of attention, no part of the mind stuck in another place or another time. And this total presence, this unification of being and doing, is what creates the grace we observe in their actions, the efficiency we admire in their movements, the beauty we celebrate in their existences. You can learn this. You can cultivate this quality of presence in your own life. When you are eating, eat. When you are walking, walk. When you are resting, rest completely, without guilt, without planning, without mentally rehearsing tomorrows that haven't arrived yet. Being here, now, completely, is both the simplest and most difficult practice. Simple because it requires nothing but attention. difficult because attention is constantly pulled in multiple directions by mental habits, by worries, by external stimuli. But it is possible, and the more practiced, the more natural it becomes. And the birds, in their non-self-conscious but fully aware lives, are your silent teachers, your living examples of how it is possible to inhabit the present moment with grace and appropriateness. So, rest now, completely.
Let the birds fly through your dreams, their colors illuminating interior landscapes, their songs providing a soundtrack for dream journeys. You have visited their world through contemplation, and they now visit yours through images and resonances that will remain, that will subtly influence how you see and relate to these creatures when you encounter them again in wakefulness. Each knowledge is a seed planted in consciousness. Each moment of appreciation is an act of connection that enriches both sides of the relationship, both species involved in the encounter. The birds will continue their lives, indifferent to your adoration, but benefited by your respect. And you will continue yours, enriched by having dedicated this time to know, admire, and contemplate these winged presences that make the sky more interesting, the mornings more musical, life more diverse and beautiful. Sleep well, or continue your day with a renewed awareness of the beauty around. The birds are there. They always have been. They always will be as long as there is air to fly in and trees to land on. And you, now a little more aware of their magnificence, a little more connected to the natural world that humans sometimes forget to notice, carry with you an appreciation that is a form of gratitude, of reverence, of love for life in all its glorious and humble manifestations. May the birds bless you with their presence. May their songs gently wake you. May their flights inspire you. May their simple existence remind you that, and the world is more than human concerns, that there is beauty independent of utility, that there is intrinsic value in life forms that owe us nothing, but offer us everything just by existing, just by being, just by flying through the same skies we contemplate when we need perspective, inspiration, a reminder that we are part of something vast, ancient, and magnificent.